The following episode is directed, produced, and distributed by Leeward Podcast Productions. The explicit rating on this show should require no explanation, as it is an unscripted and unedited show between a married couple disagreeing. However, to appease our weak-kneed wussy pack of lawyers, here you go. Listener discretion is advised. Now, on with the show. Hello, and welcome to the History vs. HERStory podcast. I'm Nathaniel, and as always, I'm here with my for better or for worse partner in life, Crystal.
Hi, everyone.
Also in the studio today, acting as questioner, judge, and jury, we have Devlin.
Greetings.
Okay, so let's have a quick rundown of the format of our show. One of our children is going to present us with a question they want the answer to, but to which they know we disagree. Neither Crystal nor I get to know the question ahead of time. They then randomly generate who goes first. The winner gets 3 to 5 minutes to make their case. The judge then gets a maximum of 2 minutes to ask any clarifying questions they would like. The tables then turn, and the second party gets their 3 to 5 minutes to try and convince the judge to their side. Then the judge gets 2 minutes to question them. Our judge then has to make a ruling on whose argument they found more convincing. The turns are then reversed, and the same rules apply. As for you, our audience, if you agree, disagree, or want to make your own case, please head over to one of our social media sites, and we'll be happy to engage with you there. While we get the studio ready, here are a few words from our sponsor. Leeward Podcast Productions proudly presents Tuck In with McTavish. However, we need to level with you folks. We signed the renowned reclusive ghostwriter J.B. McTavish to present his favorite spine-tingling tales and scary short stories for your bedtime pleasure. Unfortunately, right before the show was about to start, the man has gone missing, and it seems something evil is afoot. Rest assured, we will keep you updated, and we will not rest until our man is safely back in the studio. In the meantime, the show must go on. So join our temporary host, Nathaniel, weekly, as he presents a short story from one of our favorite authors, both new and classic, likely to give you cause to sleep with one eye open. If you dare, slip under the sheets and find Tuck In with McTavish on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts today. And don't forget to check out our other wonderful podcasts on the Leeward Podcast Productions Network at leewardpodcasting.com. Welcome back. Are we ready for today's questions?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, then let's flip the script and bring out the dip. Devlin, what's our topic?
Now, I've heard you guys talking about tipping delivery drivers, because, sometimes we use them every couple days or maybe even a week. So, what are your opinions on tipping delivery drivers to begin with, especially in a pandemic experience like this that we're going through right now?
Tipping. All right, so the first topic is tipping. All right, why don't you flip the coin and tell us who goes first?
Actually, I do not have a coin on me, but I do have a number between 1 and 2.
Okay, one number between 1 and 2. I'll take 2.
Okay, it was actually 1.
Well, all right, looks like you're going first, Crystal.
All right. Well, it is a good question, and yes, we have argued about it. Tipping delivery drivers. Now, in my opinion, I believe that delivery drivers should be tipped. Now, most delivery services do not institute a flat hourly rate for slow times or weather restrictions. So many times delivery drivers maybe work for less than minimum wage while still having to supply their own gas, wear and tear on vehicles, as well as having to battle traffic, crazy drivers. Now, in college, I waited tables and was paid for my services through tips because the $2 an hour that they were paying me hourly was not going to do it. Now, yes, I did take the order, refilled the drinks, delivered the food to the tables, chit chatted to earn those tips. But aren't delivery drivers from the same fold? Instead of just going into one restaurant, they're forced to go to many, forced to deal with restaurants, wait times, customers when the restaurant did not include an item or silverware or whatever into their sealed bags. They pay their own gas, have to maintain their vehicles, and get the food to you hot and ready to eat so that you don't have to drive, wait in line, deal with the restaurants yourself. So, yes, in my opinion, I do believe that they need your tips. And a buck isn't going to do it off of $100 food purchase. They're doing what you don't want to do. You want to stay home. That's the reason you're using the delivery service. Whether weather or just after a long day, you're not wasting that time in your lunch hour, long lines, anything like that. So yes, in my opinion, the delivery drivers absolutely need to be tipped.
Wow, that was one hell of a chock full. Do you think it should be integrated into the app, the tips? Do you think that should be a thing?
Absolutely. I think that it should automatically be integrated in, and if people want to tip more, that should be an option as well. But there should be at least some minimum that is essential.
All right, I gotcha. And same question goes to you, Dad.
I think it's a great question. And simply put, I think tipping has created the ideal situation for worker exploitation. You know, it was one thing when tipping was something on the side between the customer and the patron and the service provider. You know, a wink, wink, here you go, a little something on the side for a job well done kind of thing. But when employers began to calculate the so-called tips as part of their overall pay, they shifted the tipping to no longer a little something extra, but for the most part, it becomes their main means of survival. This is not what tipping was intended for, and with the explosion of delivery services, it's the perfect time for us to stop this foolish practice by forcing the delivery companies to pay their drivers a fair wage to begin with and keep their hands out of the tips. Statistically, along with any person who lives on tips, they can tell you the younger generation tips much less than their older counterparts. That's just a fact. While the actual so-called pay of, tipped workers, including drivers, have stayed roughly the same, which once you factor in inflation is actually quite a bit less. The tips themselves are going down is what I'm saying. This is why delivery companies promote their jobs as, quote, side hustles or extra income, because the truth is, nobody can survive on what they actually pay you alone. And everybody who's worked in the tipping industry knows that only a small percentage of the tips are reported or taxed also. So, thanks to the service industry, employers using tipping as a means of underpaying their people, this takes a big chunk of their income and it becomes unreported to the government in billions of dollars a year. It's just a disservice to our tax system. So the truth is, we shouldn't be forcing workers in any industry to rest their livelihoods on people who can't do math to tip properly, don't believe in tipping for whatever reason, or just they're cheap-ass bastards that don't mind stiffing others because they only care about themselves. If we all, and I mean all, just stop tipping, the driver's true wage it'll show, and the drivers will just simply all quit. This will force these companies to raise the wages to attract drivers back. I know it'd be painful at first, but in the long run, in my opinion, it'd be better for all of us.
Damn, what a solid argument. Now, don't you think that the fact that tipping drivers makes things a little harder on the companies?
Well, I understand that the companies have to make money. All companies have to make money. I get that. I just don't think that underpaying the drivers, and frankly, I think that if people knew what the drivers are actually being paid before the tip, they would be shocked. The bottom line is that underpaying the drivers and then manipulating the people's tips to basically add up to what a actual income would be is ridiculous, and it's insulting, and frankly I think it's illegal. And I know that there have been several court cases on this. I know DoorDash in particular ended up in court over this because people thought their tips were going to the driver, not to the company, to kind of dole it out as part of their actual income. So no.
Okay. Yeah. Another solid argument. Okay. All right. All right. Well, both parties had very compelling arguments, but I gotta award the point to Dad.
Yes.
Actually.
All right. I'll take the win. Okay. So now Crystal went first on the last one. So Devlin, what question you throwing at me?
All right. So lately, there's been a lot of talk about raising the minimum wage. What are you guys thinking about this?
Minimum wage. All right. What a inflammatory question.
Good one.
All right. Well, here's my thinking. There are a couple of arguments that are against it. But the problem is minimum wage hasn't been increased since 2009. Since that time, the cost of goods haven't stayed stable. They haven't even matched inflation. So, for instance, if you look at the cost of a burger over the years and adjusted for inflation, you would still be paying half of what it costs now. The idea that raising minimum wage would result in some kind of immediate raise in the cost of things, it may be true initially to a certain degree, but then the market will, adjust based on demand and fall back into line. In the market, things only cost what people are willing to pay for them. So the idea that, we raise the minimum wage and milk will suddenly cost $10 and then just go higher, in my opinion, is just smoke. I also argue that raising the minimum wage will increase the government's tax base and decrease the ever-growing subsidy programs because more people can afford to get off the assistance programs in the first place. I kind of see this as a twofer. Less the government has to pay for subsidy programs and the bigger pot of money to support other programs. The arguments that raising minimum wage will increase automation and result in fewer jobs. And to a degree, that is true, in my opinion. More companies are going to invest in automation, automated products. I think it's inevitable anyway. The truth is, guns and butter is like my old economics professor used to say. The reliance on one thing just shifts it somewhere else. Will McDonald's use automated screens to cut down on cashiers? Sure it will. They're already doing that. But then we're going to need more programmers for these machines, maintenance people for these machines, factory workers to pump out these machines, etc. Jobs don't disappear. They just shift to other demand. So in reality, automation really only takes the most unpleasant or unsafe tasks away from us and often replaces them with more desirable and higher paying skilled labor. So in my opinion, we absolutely should raise the minimum wage. And I think all the arguments, if you look at it, have already been disproven. If you look at, let's say, Seattle or LA or Chicago, where the cost of labor, it's already at $15 or more. We can see the scare tactics used about the minimum wage raise has been proven to be basically complete crap. The cost of groceries, for example, have stayed at or near the same everywhere else than what they were before the raises. In those places where workers cost more, guess what? I can still get a double cheeseburger for under $5 at the local fast food restaurant. The same everywhere else. Do CEOs deserve to make more than, say, the company's janitor? Sure, you bet. Do they deserve to make 5,000 to 1% more? It's ridiculous. It's completely out of line. When you have full-time workers still qualifying for welfare to feed their families, it's time to change, and it is time to raise the minimum wage.
Now, see, the government tried to push it to $15, But do you really think it should be $15 or should it be less?
That's a very difficult question. Initially my gut says, yeah, let's make it flat, a federal, 15, and then in areas that the cost of living is higher, obviously it will adjust the floor. The problem is that in so many different areas, the quote living wage is so vastly different in, say, rural Kentucky to Chicago, where $15 in Chicago is, I mean, it's already over $15. Let's be real. In rural Kentucky, they've still got like a $7 minimum wage. Or so, do I think it should be a flat 15? All in all, I would say yes. I would say let's make it 15 across the board, and then the cost of living goes up from there. And as far as anyone else wants to argue that well, with that everything else is going to increase, well, you heard my argument for that. So you know what? Yes, I think it should be 15 across the board.
Okay. Mom, what do you think about this whole ordeal?
Well, my stance is I disagree with having the $15 minimum wage increase, mainly because, in my opinion, I think it'll result in an increase in business operating expenses, an increase in the price of goods and services to cover that expense, which means, yeah, you make more, but the increase in the products and services will offset the gain. And I know, honey, you're saying, well, the cost will stay the same. You don't do the shopping. I do. So the only thing is that, yes, I do believe that there would be an increase. As for how much, that I don't know. Now, small businesses, which to the pandemic, have already taken a major hit. Now they're going to be forced to cut back on their workforce, raise prices, reduce benefits, and possibly be forced to file bankruptcy. So they'll be forced to choose. Do they increase the cost of the goods and services, or reduce labor costs, or even just hire fewer workers, costing workers their jobs, leading to an even larger unemployment rate than we already currently have? If we focus on larger corporations, yes, again, we have an increase in the cost to offset the increase in minimum wage. But we're forgetting that as a nation, we've tried so hard to bring jobs back to the states. Now companies, to offset the increase, would be forced to start looking again at overseas labor markets at way cheaper costs, again leading to unemployment. Also, the increase in minimum wage means that a larger number of overqualified workers would be taking the jobs that would ordinarily go to young or inexperienced workers just trying to get experience. In general, I'm against the $15 minimum wage increase because, though it sounds great to have that increase in pay, I believe that the means in which the businesses will have to find a way to offset that increase, whether trimming manpower by the means of layoffs, hiring fewer workers, or raising prices, which will lead to inflation. Either way, the money must come from somewhere. So, yeah, as of right now, and especially due to the pandemic, I just don't believe it's the right time to raise the minimum wage to $15.
All right, that was also a solid argument. Now, I heard a lot about the pandemic in your argument. Do you think there might be ever a time for the minimum wage to be raised?
Possibly, but at this time, I don't believe that it should be put in the hands of the federal government. I believe that each state, just like your father had stated, has different cost of livings, different in different areas. That's something that each state would have to look into. But as for doing a straight $15, and yes, the pandemic did set so many businesses back, and so many went out of business. I just don't believe right now that it's the right time. Future, maybe, just not right now.
Okay. Well, both, again, compelling arguments, but I'm going to have to give my point to, I'd say Dad, again.
What? Again?
Yes.
I'm going to remember this.
You heard it. 2 wins for Dad.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's our show for this week. Join us next week when another child will be here to put us to the question.
And hopefully I win.
One count on it.
For now, this is your host, Nathaniel.
And Crystal.
Be safe out there and take care of yourself.
And each other.
Later.
You've been listening to History vs. HERStory, a Leeward podcast production. We hope you enjoyed our show and are now jumping over to rate us 5 stars wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to visit us on our Facebook page at History v. HERStory or on Twitter at History v. HERStory. We appreciate all the support we've been getting on our Patreon, and if you too would like to get in on the fun and support your side, head over to patreon.com/Leeward Podcasting and vote with your wallet. Or head over to our website at leewardpodcasting.com and find the link there. Thanks again, and we will see you next week.